Hey, my name is Joe Reynolds from Love is Love Farm at Gaia Gardens. We're located here in Decatur, Georgia. I actually started my farm business in a different location. I took care of a small family farm called the Glover Family Farm, which, like Gaia Gardens where we are, is land that I did not own. I've leased the property from a family that had farmed it for several years. It had been in their family for a while. And they allowed me to start a farm business, use their tractor, their tools, their infrastructure, and I ran my business for 3 years out there before I relocated to this farm, Gaia Gardens, which is located in the East Lake neighborhood of the metro area of Atlanta. This farm has actually been in existence since 1998, and I moved here in 2011. I'm the 5th farmer to lease the land from a group of 67 homeowners that decided to create a co-housing community here, as well as set aside about 4 to 5 acres to be a working certified organic farm. There have been a lot of things that have changed over the last 10 years. One thing is that we've seen the number of farmers markets proliferate. When I first started working on farms, there were only 2 or 3 weekly farmers markets that took place in the metro area. Now, I imagine there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 20. There also have been so many new farms that have started, and they all look very different. It's a very diverse landscape of farms, but also landscape of growers that care for the farms. And it really looks a little bit different depending on what part of the city that you're in. It was tough to figure out how to be a part of the permitting system within these municipalities. So only in the last 4 years have City of Atlanta and DeKalb County, which we're located in, they've begun to allow our farms to get business licenses to essentially like formalize our businesses as part of the county. They also collect some revenue. They collect tax dollars from us for doing so, but it also should provide some form of protection, to the neighbors that surround the farm, as well as the farm which exists within a neighborhood. So that's been a really big change in the last few years. I think when people come here and pick, we do a subscription membership to produce from the farm. We also grow a lot of seedlings for people in the springtime. When they come here, they get to see a sort of true picture, or one of the true pictures, not the only true picture, of how these sort of growing spaces look, and they get to connect with our stories. We also feed about 150, 170 families weekly with food grown here from the farm. We grow certified organic, very healthy produce. And another thing that we're trying to do, another big part of our mission, is we think that we can sustain the success of farmers through collaborating with farmers. One way we do that is that we employ young farmers here that work here either in a part-time or a full-time capacity. We also partner with some other farms to expand our marketing capacity, and we really believe in servant leadership to other farmers. So myself and other people that have been farmers here have worked with food-based organizations to just try to ensure that there are strong resources for farmers in the future.
The land where we are right now is 11.5 acres. It's Oxford College Farm, and before Oxford had it, it was the Elzer place, and Marshall and Fran Elzer both worked at the college. He was actually a math professor and then an administrator, and she worked in the library. So they had it and kept it. They had animals here. I've heard that they had a beautiful fence and horses and cows and a garden. And we see some evidence of that still today in the flowers that come up and the way the soil test does. In 2011 did a feasibility study with this land in mind, and Trulock gave the land to the college. So then I started in 2014, January, and now about 5 years later, here we are. So when I started, the house was here and nothing else really. So I got to design everything about it. And so they got it zoned. It had been residential zoned. They got the zoning changed to rural residential, which basically allows agriculture, but it also keeps us a little bit in check as far as how tall our fences can be in the front yard, and it's still got that residential character to it. It sounds like bees, doesn't it?
Oh, look, up.
Where? Yep. Yep. That's a swarm, that's what I was talking about.
Cloud of bees.
Now they say that you can bang on metal.
Oh my goodness.
In my experience, not everybody is excited about local agriculture as I am. I've known other people who associate farms with poverty, and that's something that they wanted to escape, and so they associate it with that. And so I think there's some of that where there's maybe a stigma attached to it for some people, whereas others see it as positive.
Yeah.
And that's what I would like to see more of, that people want farms in their neighborhood, and people are actively pursuing that, because I think it's a good value. And I think the further we are from the production of our food, we're going to forget where food comes from and how it's grown. And it's not that long ago that like half the country were farmers. So everybody knew a farmer, had one in their family, and had some connection with food growing. And now we've lost that in not a very long period of time. I think a lot of it is economic in terms of what can be done with the land. And I think we're an example of that, because Oxford, Georgia, land prices are not what they are in Decatur. One of the things in Atlanta is that it is a sprawling city. It is a city with a lot of trees. And there's an opportunity to save some of that land. And if we don't save it intentionally, then it's going to be lost. And once it's lost to development, it doesn't go back to farmland. And so I think farming and sustainable farming, small-scale diversified farming, is a way that farmland can be, it's kind of an in-between space. It's not a completely natural ecosystem, but debatably nothing is anymore, but anyway. It's not the completely natural ecosystem, but it's also not that built environment. And so there is an ecosystem here on the farm that I think is better than that built environment. And I think policies are needed to actively keep that in place, or else it'll just be lost. When I was originally at Gaia Gardens, I came there in 2004, was my first season. And we looked into the zoning a little bit, because it is a residential property. And it turns out you can grow food for sale on your residential property in DeKalb County. So it was fine, but it wasn't a use that was really like supported by the policy. It was just, they'll let you do it. It's one of those kind of enjoy your property uses. But more recently, they've opened the Office of Resilience and started putting in place more proactive policies. And it hasn't been that long since the city of Atlanta has adopted the urban ag policy. And I think it's a great thing, because, it's really like any business. When you have uncertainty, it can make it difficult, because you start it, everything's going well, but then you may come up against some regulation that you weren't expecting. So if you have a policy, you know how to fit into that. Here's what you can do, here's what you can't do, and so you can really build a sustainable business. And so that's the main thing that I've seen. And then once you have, like City of Atlanta, with a policy like that, any other municipality that wants to do something in a proactive way, they can model their policy after that one. So I don't know that we've seen that a whole lot, but that's something that could happen.
A food forest is basically mimicking a natural ecosystem, so there'll be different layers and diversity. And then the model that we used to kind of start it was just deep community vision planning process First, just education and planning and meeting with people and learning about other states and other cities and what we feared and what we loved and what this community wanted to do most. And then worked with the design team to continue that process and create a vision plan that everybody in the neighborhood felt comfortable with. And then moving forward with implementation and really trying to make sure that there are opportunities for residents to get paid work to continue to implement that process and learn and be engaged. And I also think it's a really new model for a city park. I mean, this will be preserved forever, which is not the case for a lot of community gardens. And I think it's really interesting to have organic land care management opportunities within a public, management plan for a city park. So that's going to be a whole new layer of opportunities and challenges. A grant was written with the U.S. Forest Service by Mario Cambardella, and he's the Urban Agriculture Director for the City of Atlanta. The reason why he was writing this is because the City of Atlanta and the Mayor's Office was really interested in ensuring that 75% of Atlanta residents were within a 10-minute walk to healthy food access points. And South Atlanta was really one of those spaces in the city where we didn't have a lot going on. And this site qualified for everything that was needed in the grants. And they wrote a grant with the U.S. Forest Service and the Conservation Fund. And they were able to, I believe, secure $75,000 or $85,000 to purchase the lands. It became an 18-month community vision planning process and education process and field trips and tastings. And 3 years later is really when things have started to just kick off to beyond what I could ever have imagined with community engagement. Some of our other sites are community gardens. People know what those are. We open up a site and people kind of come together and then they decide if they want to adopt it on their own. And that's more of a different model, like a catalyst. I think there's just a general sense of distrust between neighborhoods that have traditionally not gotten a lot of resources and government. And I think the biggest thing is nobody knew what a food forest is. People know what a community garden is, but the idea of a food forest was so abstract that it really was 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Everybody in the mayor's office is all about, creating more equitable, resilient, and transparent, and food system for every person.
Yeah.
But there's no different work than what I did in 16 years of community organizing. You have more resources, but the distrust from past history is so deep that no matter who's doing it, you're going to have more barriers. So I think that's why it's really important to for us, it's been really important to be partnering with nonprofit partners and citizen groups.
Wow, that's a big question. I mean, my first thought is, why are those two mutually exclusive?
Right.
You can be politically active and make small changes in your life.
For me, it's important for me to do simple acts like work in gardens and farms where I can see something happening immediately. And I also think at the policy level, you can have much longer, wider impact.
I'm not a big policy person, and I think it's hard to see the results there, but it is very important work.
I really think it's going to take an effort on both sides, both on the sides of politicians and folks that are helping drive governmental policy to help support this ecosystem of farms that have come around, to help make them more resilient in the face of very fast changing weather, and to essentially ensure that these farms will be in existence in the future.
I do feel like it's very, very, very important to make your voice heard in local government. I mean, that's pretty much what drives us, is when we get calls and we're responding to calls.
The strongest place to sort of ensure this change is in your own household. So thinking about where your food comes from, how you participate in the supply chain of food, what sort of waste you generate in your household, how you treat your yard is a reflection of how you might want other people to treat the rivers that surround your communities or feed this city.
I'm really glad people are doing that kind of activism because it could easily be legislated out of existence.
If you want things to change at the city level or local government level, then showing up and making a voice and making calls really truly makes an impact.